The council chamber stretched wide and tall, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some had scales, others had fur. Some floated in tanks of liquid, while others stood on legs that numbered anywhere from 2 to 8. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked slowly down the center aisle, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon her. She was here to speak for humanity, for Earth, for all the colonies that humans had built among the stars. At the front of the chamber sat the Council Prime, a being called Thyrix. He belonged to the Venthal species, insect-like creatures with smooth shells that shimmered in shades of blue and green. His compound eyes watched Chen as she took her place at the speaker's platform. Ambassador Chen of Earth. Thyrix's voice echoed through translators worn by everyone present. Humanity seeks membership in the Galactic Council. We have reviewed your application. Before we vote, you must understand what membership means. Chen nodded. She had prepared for this moment for months. We understand the responsibilities, Council Prime. Do you? A harsh voice cut through the chamber. Chen turned to see a massive creature rise from its seat. The Krenth were known throughout the galaxy as warriors. This one stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in red and black armor that seemed to be part of its body. Do you soft creatures understand what it means to stand among real civilizations? Thyrix made a sound that the translators interpreted as a sigh. Commander Vraxt, please. This is a formal session. I speak what others think, Vraxt growled. These humans are primitives. They only just learned to travel faster than light. What can they offer us? Chen kept her face calm, though her heart raced. We offer friendship, trade, and our unique perspective. Perspective? Vraxt laughed, a deep rumbling sound. What perspective can children offer to adults? Thyrix raised one of his many limbs, calling for silence. Enough. Ambassador Chen, there is one matter we must discuss before any vote can happen. You must agree to follow the Suresh Conventions. The rules of war, Chen said. She had read about them, though the concept still felt strange. Yes, we've studied them. Studied is not enough, another council member spoke up. This one was Pelsha, a being that looked almost like a floating jellyfish colored in soft purples. You must swear to uphold them. All member species do. Thyrix touched a control panel, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber floor. Text scrolled by in dozens of languages, including English. The Suresh Conventions have kept the galaxy from total destruction for over 12,000 years. They are sacred rules that all civilized beings follow. Chen read the list as it scrolled past. War must be formally declared with 30 days' notice. Civilians cannot be targeted or harmed. Biological and chemical weapons are forbidden. Nuclear weapons can only be used in deep space. Combat must occur in designated zones away from populated worlds. Prisoners must be treated well and exchanged regularly. When one side surrenders, the other must accept and stop fighting immediately. These rules, Chen said slowly, assume both sides agree to follow them. Of course, Thyrix said. That is the point. War becomes limited, controlled, civilized. But what if someone doesn't follow the rules? Chen asked. The chamber fell quiet. Finally, Pelsha spoke, her voice soft. That has not happened in 3,000 years. The last species to break the conventions was wiped out by the combined forces of the Council. No one breaks the rules anymore. Commander Vrax laughed again. See, the human asks childish questions. She does not understand that honor and strength mean following the code. Chen wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. Earth needed allies. Humanity was too new to space, too weak to stand alone if threats came. We will follow the conventions, she said clearly. Thyrix seemed pleased. Then we shall vote. All in favor of granting humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Council? Lights appeared throughout the chamber, most of them green for yes. Chen counted quickly. 41 green lights, 5 red lights for no, 1 yellow for abstaining. They had done it. Humanity is granted provisional membership, Thyrix announced. For the next 5 years, you will have a voice in this chamber, but limited voting rights. If you prove yourselves worthy and follow all our laws, full membership will follow. Welcome to the galactic community, Ambassador Chen. Chen bowed. Thank you, Council Prime. Earth is honored. As the session ended and beings began to file out, Thyrix approached Chen. Up close, he was even more alien, with mandibles that clicked softly as he spoke. I voted for you, he said. I believe humanity has potential. But please take the conventions seriously. They exist for good reasons. I understand, Chen said. May I ask something? Has there ever been a war where one side didn't follow the rules but the other side did? Thyrix was quiet for a moment. Once long ago, the rule followers lost badly. It was after that tragedy that the conventions became absolute. We realized that civilized war only works if everyone agrees to be civilized. Now everyone agrees. Chen nodded slowly, but something felt wrong about the logic. She couldn't quite put it into words yet. 3 days later, Chen was in her quarters on the diplomatic station when her communication panel exploded with alerts. She ran to it, reading the messages with growing horror. New Brisbane, one of humanity's newer colonies, home to 3 million people, attacked. The automated distress signal had been broadcasting for hours before anyone noticed. Chen's hands shook as she opened the visual feeds. The colony was gone, buildings reduced to rubble, no life signs detected, and the ships responsible had left a signature that the computer quickly identified. Krenth Empire. Chen immediately requested an emergency council session. Within hours, she stood again in the chamber, but this time her voice was not calm. 3 million humans are dead, she said, her words echoing. Murdered without warning, without mercy. The Krenth Empire attacked New Brisbane without a formal declaration of war. They broke the conventions. Commander Vraxt stood, and to Chen's shock, he looked almost amused. We sent a declaration. If your primitive communication systems failed to receive it, that is not our fault. You're lying, Chen said flatly. The chamber erupted in noise. Thyrix called for order. These are serious accusations, Ambassador. Do you have proof? Our systems show no declaration was ever sent, Chen said. And even if it was, what about the 30-day waiting period? What about avoiding civilian targets? Vraxt crossed his massive arms. Humanity is not a full member yet. The conventions do not fully apply to provisional members, and New Brisbane was developing military infrastructure. It was a farming colony. Chen shouted. Thyrix raised his limbs again. Peace, this matter must be investigated. Both sides will present evidence. Until then, we ask that both humanity and the Krenth Empire refrain from further hostilities. Chen stared at him. Refrain? They killed 3 million of my people. And we are very sorry, Pelshaw said gently. But responding with more violence will only make things worse. Let us investigate properly. Justice will be served through proper channels. Chen looked around the chamber. Most of the council members seemed uncomfortable but not outraged. Not ready to act. They would talk and debate while more humans died. She took a deep breath. How long will the investigation take? These things are complex, Thyrix said. Perhaps 3 to 6 months, 6 months. Chen nodded slowly, then turned and walked out of the chamber without being dismissed. Behind her, she heard shocked murmurs, but she didn't care. She had a message to send to Earth. The council would move slowly, carefully, following all their rules and procedures. But 3 million humans were dead, and Chen had a terrible feeling that the council's way of justice would not be enough. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had very different ideas about what happened when someone killed their people. Admiral James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UN Defiant, watching the view screen display what remained of New Brisbane. Debris floated where homes had stood. The scanning teams had confirmed it hours ago, but he had needed to see it himself. 3 million people gone in a single day. Admiral, his second officer, Commander Yuki Tanaka, approached quietly. We finished analyzing the attack pattern. The Krenth used orbital bombardment weapons. They targeted residential areas first, then infrastructure. There was no warning, no chance to evacuate. Okonkwo's jaw tightened. He had fought in the Martian Rebellion and the Titan Crisis. He had seen combat, seen death, but this was different. This was extermination. What about their declaration of war? He asked. No transmission was ever sent, Tanaka confirmed. We've checked every possible frequency and method. Commander Vraxt lied to the council. Okonkwo nodded slowly. He had expected as much. And the council's response? Ambassador Chen reports they want to investigate for 6 months. They're asking both sides to avoid further conflict. Tanaka's voice carried an edge of anger she usually kept hidden. 6 months, Okonkwo repeated. He turned to face his senior staff, all gathered on the bridge. 6 months while the Krenth prepare their next attack. 6 months while we follow rules they've already broken. Sir, his tactical officer spoke up, a young man named Rivera. The Suresh conventions are clear. If we strike back without a formal declaration, if we target anything other than military installations, we'll be in violation. The whole council could turn against us. I know, Okonkwo said. He pulled up a holographic display of the conventions. The rules scrolled past detailed and specific. Rules created over thousands of years meant to make war clean and controlled. He read them all again. Then with a single gesture, he closed the file. These rules assume the enemy will follow them too, he said quietly. These rules assume both sides care about honor and civilization. The Krenth don't care. They proved that at New Brisbane. So what do we do? Tanaka asked. Okonkwo looked at each member of his staff. We protect our people. That's the only rule that matters now. Back on Earth, the emergency meeting of the United Earth government stretched into its 5th hour. President Amara Osei sat at the head of the table, listening to her advisors argue. Some wanted to follow the council's lead, to work through proper channels. Others demanded immediate retaliation. If we violate the conventions now, the Secretary of Diplomatic Affairs said, we'll lose any chance of gaining allies. The galaxy will see us as barbarians. They already see us as weak, the Secretary of Defense countered. The Krenth attacked us because they thought we wouldn't fight back. If we don't respond, others will see us as easy targets. President Osei raised her hand for silence. Ambassador Chen, you've been there. You've met these species. What's your honest assessment? Chen appeared on the view screen from the diplomatic station. She looked tired. The council means well, but they've been at peace for so long that they've forgotten what real war looks like. Their conventions work because everyone agrees to limit themselves. But the Krenth broke that agreement. If we try to fight by rules they ignore, we'll lose. And if we don't follow the rules? Ozzy asked. The galaxy will be afraid of us, Chen said simply. But at least we'll be alive. The room fell silent. Finally, Osei spoke. I didn't want this. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, partners, a better way. But New Brisbane has shown us the truth. The galaxy isn't ready for peace with humanity. Not yet. She looked at the Secretary of Defense. Give Admiral Okonkwo full authorization. Tell him to do whatever is necessary to protect our people. 2 weeks later, a fleet of 50 human warships arrived at the edge of Krenth space. It was a small force compared to the Krenth Empire's 800 ships, but it was everything humanity could spare without leaving Earth and the colonies defenseless. Commander Vraxt watched the human ships approach on his tactical display. He was aboard the Kess Bloodclaw, the pride of the Krenth fleet. Around him, his officers prepared for glorious battle. They come to die with honor, one officer said, mandibles clicking with excitement. 50 ships against our might. Perhaps these humans have courage after all. Vraxt studied the display. Something felt wrong. The human ships were not forming battle lines. They were not moving toward the military stations or shipyards. Instead, they were heading toward the Krenth capital world. Get me a communication channel with the human commander, Vraxt ordered. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, almost cold. Commander Vraxt, I am Fleet Admiral James Okonkwo of the United Earth Navy. So the children come to play war, Vraxt said. You should have stayed home, Admiral. Your 50 ships cannot stand against us. I'm not here to fight your ships, Okonkwo said. I'm here to offer you one chance. Surrender the commanders responsible for the New Brisbane massacre. Face justice for your crimes. If you do this, we leave peacefully. Vraxt laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You dare give me orders? You with your tiny fleet? I have 800 warships, human. I could crush you in an hour. Probably, Okonkwo agreed. But not before I destroy your capital. My ships carry enough firepower to crack your homeworld like an egg. Your fleet is scattered across a dozen systems. By the time you gather them, your government, your leaders, your families, all will be dead. The Krenth bridge fell silent. You would not, Vrax said, but doubt crept into his voice. The conventions forbid targeting civilian populations. The conventions? Okonkwo's eyes were hard. You mean the rules you ignored when you murdered 3 million of my people? Those conventions? This is madness, Vrax snarled. The council will destroy you for this. Maybe, Okonkwo said. But you'll already be dead. You have 1 hour to respond. The screen went dark. Vrax stared at the display showing the human ships moving into position around his homeworld. He had fought dozens of wars in his life. He knew the dance of civilized combat, the careful moves and counter-moves all species performed. But this was something different. Something terrifying. The humans were not bluffing. He could see it in their formation, in the way their weapons were powered and ready. They would do it. They would actually do it. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vraxt felt true fear. Not fear of death in glorious battle, but fear of what these strange humans represented. They did not think like other species. They did not care about honor or rules or the proper way to wage war. They cared only about protecting their own, and they would do anything, break any rule, commit any act to do so. Around the Krenth capital world, 50 human ships waited in silence. On each ship, weapons were armed and ready. The crews were tense, aware that they were violating every rule the galaxy held sacred, but they also knew that 3 million of their own people lay dead, killed by an enemy who had struck without honor or warning. The hour began to count down. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if humanity would really do it, waiting to see if these newcomers would shatter the peace that had lasted for 3,000 years. In the council chambers, emergency alarms sounded as council members rushed to their stations. Thyrix watched his display in horror, seeing the human fleet positioned for planetary bombardment. "Stop them," Peltia cried out. "Someone contact them." "This cannot happen," but Thyrix knew it was too late to stop it with words. The humans had made their choice. The galaxy would never be the same again. Commander Vrax stood before his war council, trying to project confidence he did not feel. The human ultimatum had expired 3 hours ago, but the bombardment had not come. Instead, the human ships had withdrawn to the outer system. It made no sense. They were bluffing, one of his officers declared. Weak creatures playing at strength. "Perhaps," Vrax said, though he did not believe it. "Recall the fleet. If the humans want war, we will crush them properly." But as the Krenth fleet began to gather, strange things started happening. Supply ships disappeared between jump points. 3 cargo vessels carrying fuel and ammunition simply vanished without sending distress signals. Then a military way station went silent. When a patrol was sent to investigate, they found the station intact but empty. All personnel gone, computer systems wiped clean. "Pirates?" an officer suggested. "Pirates do not move like this," Vrax growled. He studied the map of disappearances. They formed a pattern, cutting off supply lines to the fleet gathering points. "This is the humans. They are fighting like cowards, striking from shadows." More reports came in. A shipyard's computer system had been infected with a virus that caused manufacturing robots to build ships with subtle flaws. 3 destroyers had catastrophic engine failures during routine operations. No one had died, but the ships were crippled and would take months to repair. Then the broadcasts began. Every Krenth communication channel, every data network, every display screen suddenly showed the same images. Recordings from the new Brisbane attack. The footage showed Krenth ships deliberately targeting civilian shelters, shown children's hospitals exploding, schools burning. And over the images, audio played of Krenth commanders laughing as they discussed the massacre. "Turn it off," Vrax shouted at his communications officer. "I can't, sir. The signal is everywhere, repeating on every frequency. It's using our own satellites against us." Vrax watched his face appear on the screen, recorded during the council session. He heard his own voice admit that New Brisbane was not a military target. Heard himself laugh about killing humans. The recording had been edited, words taken out of context, but the effect was devastating. Within hours, Krenth civilians were protesting in the streets of the capital. Protesters demanding to know why their military had murdered civilians. Families of soldiers refusing to let their children join the fleet. It was chaos, disorder, something that had never happened in Krenth society before. "This is not war," Vrax roared. "This is terrorism. Where is their honor? Where is their courage?" Admiral Okonkwo watched the reports from his ready room aboard the Defiant. Around him, his special operations team leaders gave their updates via secure channels. Team Gamma successfully infiltrated the Krenth fuel depot at Sector 7, Commander Sarah Reeves reported. Her team specialized in what Earth called asymmetric warfare. "We've planted adaptive nanites in their fuel supplies. They'll slowly degrade engine efficiency over the next 3 months. The Krenth won't notice until their ships start breaking down in the middle of operations. Team Delta has completed the cyber infiltration," another officer reported. "We now have backdoor access to 70% of Krenth military communications. We're feeding false intelligence into their tactical networks. 3 of their fleets are currently heading to defensive positions based on fake attack warnings." Okonkwo nodded. "Good work. What about the psychological operations?" "The broadcasts are working better than expected," his communications officer said. "Krenth civilians are not used to seeing the reality of war. Their conventions keep everything clean and distant. Showing them what their military actually did is causing massive social disruption. We estimate their fleet recruitment has dropped by 40%. Sir, Commander Tanaka entered the ready room. The Galactic Council is demanding we cease these operations immediately. They're calling our tactics war crimes. War crimes, Okonkwo repeated softly. He pulled up a holographic display showing New Brisbane. Tell me, Commander, what do you call this? Tanaka looked at the devastated colony. Murder, sir. Exactly. And did the Council demand the Krenth cease their operations before they killed 3 million people? Did they rush to defend us? No, sir. Then they can wait while we finish this. Okonkwo stood and addressed his team. Continue all operations. I want the Krenth Empire to understand that attacking humanity comes with a price they cannot afford to pay. In the council chambers, Thyrix listened to Ambassador Chen with growing frustration. Your people are using banned technologies, he said. Adaptive AI weapons, biological agents, cyber warfare against civilian infrastructure. These are all violations of the conventions. Chen stood at the speaker's platform and her voice was cold. And killing 3 million unarmed civilians? What convention was that? The Krenth violated the rules, yes, Pelshaw said, her voice sad. But your response violates them more. You are becoming the very thing you claim to oppose. No, Chen said firmly. We are becoming survivors. You want us to fight clean while our enemy fights dirty. You want us to follow rules while they ignore them. That's not justice. That's suicide. Another council member spoke up, a being from the Torvan species that looked like a walking tree. If we allow this, what stops every species from abandoning the conventions? We will return to the Dark Ages, to total war and complete destruction. Then maybe you should have enforced the conventions when the Krenth broke them first. Chen shot back. You wanted to investigate for 6 months while they prepared to kill more of my people. We don't have 6 months. We have to act now. Thyrix clicked his mandibles in agitation. Your people are sowing chaos in Krenth society. You are turning their civilians against their government. This is not how civilized beings conduct warfare. Civilized? Chen's voice rose. You keep using that word, but I don't think you understand what it means. Civilized means protecting the innocent. Civilized means justice. Your conventions are not civilization. They're just rules you hide behind so you can wage war without feeling bad about it. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Multiple species shouted at once, demanding Chen apologize, demanding humanity be expelled, demanding intervention. Thyrix called for order, but the chaos continued. Finally, Chen spoke again, her voice cutting through the noise. My people have fought wars for thousands of years on our homeworld. We know what total war looks like. We've destroyed entire cities, killed millions, nearly wiped ourselves out. We created weapons that could end all life on our planet. We learned these lessons through blood and suffering. She paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. And from all that horror, we learned one thing. War is not a game with rules. War is not clean or honorable. War is survival, pure and simple. You fight to win or you die. The Krenth chose to make this a fight for survival. We're just better at it than they are. In Krenth space, the situation continued to deteriorate. 2 more supply convoys vanished. A communications relay station was destroyed by what appeared to be remote-controlled drones. The capital city experienced rolling power outages as human cyber attacks targeted the energy grid. Military factories reported that 60% of their new ammunition was defective, sabotaged during manufacturing by corrupted computer systems. Commander Vraxti's fleet had shrunk from 800 ships to less than 500 combat-ready vessels, not through battle, but through systematic destruction of supplies, sabotage of systems, and simple attrition as crews deserted or refused to serve. He sat in his command chair, staring at tactical displays that showed nothing. The humans were like ghosts striking everywhere and nowhere. His sensors could not find them. His intelligence could not predict them. His ships could not catch them. This is not war, he said again, but this time there was no anger in his voice, only exhaustion and growing fear. This is extermination, slow and efficient. His second-in-command approached cautiously. Sir, we have received an unofficial communication from several noble houses. They wish to discuss terms. Surrender? Vrax's voice was hollow. They call it peace negotiations, sir. But yes. Vrax closed his eyes. In any normal war, he would refuse. The Krenth Empire did not surrender. But this was not a normal war. The humans had taught him that. They had shown him what war looked like when one side ignored all the rules, all the traditions, all the honored ways of combat. "Contact the humans," he said quietly. "Tell them we wish to talk." Across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. The humans had won without fighting a single fleet engagement. They had defeated an empire 8 times their size through tactics that horrified civilized society, and now every species asked themselves the same question. If humanity could do this to the Krenth, what could they do to us? The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 6 hours. Ambassador Chen stood alone at the speaker's platform, facing a chamber full of angry and frightened aliens. 3 council species had pledged their fleets to contain humanity if necessary. The word they kept using was intervention, but Chen knew what it really meant. War. "The Krenth have surrendered," Thyrix said, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "They have agreed to hand over the commanders responsible for New Brisbane. They will pay reparations. It is done. You must stop your operations immediately." "We already have," Chen replied calmly. "As soon as the Krenth agreed to our terms, all human military operations ceased. After you destroyed their society," a Torvan delegate shouted. "Their civilians are rioting. Their economy is in chaos. Their military is broken. This is not justice. This is revenge." Chen met the Torvan's eyes. "It is both, and it is a warning. Attack humanity. And this is what happens. Not honorable fleet battles, not clean wars with rules. This." Pelsha drifted forward in her tank, her voice soft but insistent. "You have made the entire galaxy fear you. Do you not see what you have become? You are the monsters now." "We are survivors," Chen said. "There is a difference." "Is there?" Thyrix challenged. "Your people used banned weapons, targeted civilian infrastructure, caused social collapse. These are the actions of tyrants and terrorists, not civilized beings." Chen took a deep breath. She had known this moment was coming. She pulled up a holographic display, and images from Earth's history began to play across the chamber. Scenes of devastation and horror from humanity's own past. "This is Earth, year 1945, she said. 2 cities destroyed by nuclear weapons. Over 200,000 dead in seconds. This is Earth, years 1914 through 1918. 10 million soldiers dead. Another 20 million civilians. Entire generation of young men wiped out. This is Earth, years 1939 through 1945. 60 million dead. Cities burned, nations destroyed, families exterminated." The images continued. Wars and conflicts spanning thousands of years of human history. The chamber fell silent as they watched. "We call it total war," Chen continued. "Every resource mobilized. Every citizen a target. Every factory, every farm, every road becomes part of the war machine. You fight not just the enemy's military, but their will to fight. You destroy their ability to wage war and their desire to continue. That is barbarism," Thyrix said quietly. "Yes," Chen agreed. "It is. And we nearly destroyed ourselves learning how to do it. We came within minutes of ending all life on Earth multiple times. We poisoned our own land, killed our own people, created weapons that still haunt us centuries later." She changed the display to show modern Earth, green and peaceful. "But we survived. And we learned. We learned that total war is horrible, but sometimes necessary. We learned that following rules only works if both sides agree. We learned that survival is more important than honor." "You learned wrong," a delegate from the Sha species said. "Their people were known for their philosophy and wisdom. Honor and civilization are what separate us from animals. Without rules, we descend into chaos." "No," Chen said firmly. "Survival is what matters. You can have all the honor in the galaxy, but if you're dead, what good is it? The Krenth taught us that. They showed us that your rules, your conventions, your civilization only exist because everyone agrees to pretend war can be clean. But it can't. War is ugly and brutal and terrible. Pretending otherwise just makes you vulnerable to anyone willing to face reality." The chamber erupted again. Multiple species demanded humanity be expelled from the council immediately. Others called for military action to force compliance. A few remained silent, thinking. President Ose addressed the council via communication link from Earth. "We understand your concerns. We truly do. But we will not apologize for surviving. We will not apologize for protecting our people. You want us to follow your conventions? Then enforce them. When the Krenth attacked New Brisbane, where was the council fleet? Where was the justice? Where was the enforcement? No one answered." "That's what I thought," Ose continued. You want everyone to follow rules, but you don't want to do the hard work of making them follow the rules. You just hope everyone will behave nicely. Well, we can't afford hope. We have to deal with reality. Therix was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. If we allow this, if we accept that humanity can ignore the conventions, what stops every other species from doing the same? The conventions have kept the peace for 3,000 years. You threaten to undo all of that. The Krenth already undid it, Chen said. We just made sure everyone noticed. The vote was called. Should humanity be expelled from the council and face potential military intervention? The lights appeared throughout the chamber. Chen counted them with a sinking heart. 28 votes for expulsion, 18 against, 1 abstention. The motion passes, Thyric said, and he sounded tired. Humanity's membership in the Galactic Council is revoked. You have 30 days to remove all personnel from council space. Chen bowed her head. She had known this might happen, but it still hurt. Humanity had reached for the stars hoping to find friends and allies. Instead, they had found fear and rejection. As the session ended, Therix approached Chen privately. I voted against expulsion, he said quietly. I want you to know that. Thank you, Chen said. But I also want you to understand something, Therix continued. Thousands of years ago, my people fought wars like yours. Total war. Complete destruction. We nearly wiped ourselves out before we created the conventions. He gestured around the empty chamber. All of us did. Every species in this council learned the same lesson. War without rules leads to extinction. We created the conventions not to be civilized but to survive. Chen looked at him. And when the rules don't protect you? When someone breaks them? Then we all enforce them together, Therix said. That is the point. No single species should have to fight alone. But you chose to fight alone in the most brutal way possible. You reminded us of what we used to be, and we are afraid of becoming that again. Fear can be useful, Chen said. Maybe the Krenth needed to be afraid. Maybe others do too. Perhaps, Therix agreed. But be careful, Ambassador. Fear can turn to hatred very quickly, and you have made many species afraid of you now. 1 year passed. Humanity withdrew from council space and focused on building their own territories. Trade with alien species dropped to almost nothing. Most species avoided human ships and stations, but something interesting happened. Pirate attacks in systems near human space decreased dramatically. Border skirmishes between minor species stopped when human observers were present. No one wanted to attract human attention or anger. 2 alien species, smaller ones without much power in the council, secretly approached Earth with requests for military alliance. They had enemies and wanted protection. Humanity carefully agreed, offering defense in exchange for trade and cooperation. They were building their own network, outside the council's structure. Then the reports started coming in. Strange ships appearing at the edge of known space. Entire colonies going silent without explanation. Scout ships disappearing. At first, the council thought it was more pirates or perhaps a new aggressive species. But when the first major attack happened, everyone understood. The Velcresh swarm had arrived. A hive mind species that consumed everything in its path. Billions of individual creatures acting as one intelligence. They did not communicate, did not negotiate, did not follow any rules. They simply attacked, consumed, and moved on. 3 council species lost colonies in the first month. The council fleet responded according to the conventions, sending formal warnings, offering negotiations, trying to establish communication. The swarm ignored them and continued attacking. When the council fleet finally engaged in battle, fighting cleanly and by the rules, they were overwhelmed. The swarm did not care about designated combat zones or rules of engagement. They attacked from every direction, used biological weapons, targeted civilians and military equally. In the council chambers, panic set in. Therix called for emergency sessions. Battle plans were drawn up following the conventions. Evacuations were organized properly, with civilian ships moving slowly through approved routes. Military forces positioned themselves in defensive formations, waiting for the swarm to attack so they could respond appropriately. And they were losing, badly. The swarm did not fight like civilized species. They fought like the humans had. Total war, no rules, only survival. Pelsha drifted in her tank, watching the tactical displays with growing horror. We need help, she said quietly. From whom? Another delegate asked. All our forces are committed. Therix was silent. He knew the answer, even if saying it was painful. Finally, he spoke. We need to contact humanity. The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood what that meant. They would have to ask the species they had expelled, the species they had called barbaric and uncivilized, to save them. They would have to admit that their rules and conventions were not enough against an enemy that did not care about such things. Send the message, Thyrix ordered. Offer them full membership in the council immediately. Offer them whatever they want. Just pray they agree to help us. Admiral Okonkwo stood before the holo-display showing Thyrix's recorded message. The Council Prime had made the request personally, his voice stripped of pride or arrogance. Just desperation. Help us. Please. President Osei sat in her office on Earth, surrounded by her advisors. They expelled us, the Secretary of Defense said. Called us barbarians. Now they want our help? They're dying, Ambassador Chen said via the communication link. 7 colonies have been completely consumed by the swarm. Billions dead. The conventions are useless against an enemy that doesn't follow them. Ironic, Osei said softly. They're learning what we tried to tell them. So do we help? The Secretary of Diplomatic Affairs asked. Or do we let them face the consequences of their own philosophy? Osei was quiet for a long moment. She thought about New Brisbane, about the 3 million dead, about the Council's slow response and pretty words. She thought about the year of isolation, of being treated as monsters by species who had never faced real war. But she also thought about the billions of innocent beings dying to the swarm right now. Civilians who had nothing to do with the Council's decisions. We help, she said finally. Not because they deserve it, but because it's right. And because humanity doesn't abandon people who need us even if they've abandoned us. The response was sent within hours. Admiral Okonkwo would lead a human fleet to support Council forces. But there was one condition, stated clearly in the message. We will fight to win, not to be honorable. If you accept our help, you accept our methods. The Council agreed. They had no choice. 3 weeks later, a combined fleet gathered at the edge of swarm territory. 150 human warships joined with nearly 400 Council vessels. Admiral Okonkwo met with the Council fleet commanders via holoconference. Thyrix was there, along with military leaders from a dozen species. We have prepared a defensive strategy, a Torvan general began, pulling up tactical displays. We will establish fortified positions at key jump points, force the swarm to come to us, and engage them in proper fleet actions. No, Okonkwo said flatly. The Council commanders looked at him in surprise. No, the Torvan repeated. Defense won't work, Okonkwo explained. The swarm doesn't think like you. They don't care about strategic positions or supply lines. They just keep coming. If you try to hold position, they'll swarm you with numbers. We need to attack. Attack how? Thyrix asked. We do not even know where their main force is located. Then we find it, Okonkwo said. He pulled up his own tactical display, showing swarm movement patterns. Look at how they spread. It's not random. They're being coordinated from somewhere. A central intelligence, a queen, a hive mind nexus. We find that, we kill it, and the whole swarm collapses. We cannot just attack blindly, a Shah commander protested. We must follow proper engagement protocols. Okonkwo looked at each commander in turn. With respect, your protocols are why you're losing. The swarm doesn't care about your rules. They use biological weapons, they target civilians, they attack without warning. Sound familiar? He paused. You need to fight the way we fought the Krenth. No rules, no mercy. Just victory. The Council commanders exchanged uncomfortable looks. Finally, Thyrix spoke. What do you propose? We split into hunter groups, Okonkwo said. Small, fast teams that track swarm movements and find their source. We use every weapon we have. Biological agents designed to kill swarm organisms. Nanite weapons that consume their biomatter. Nuclear weapons deployed without restriction. And when we find their hive mind, we destroy it completely, along with every swarm creature we can find. That is genocide, Pelshaw said quietly. Yes, Okonkwo agreed. It is, but the swarm won't stop. They'll consume every living thing in the galaxy if we let them. Sometimes survival requires terrible choices. You asked for our help. This is how we help. The Council commanders deliberated. Some argued against the plan. Others pointed out that conventional tactics had failed completely. In the end, desperation won. The plan was approved. The war against the swarm lasted 6 months. It was brutal, efficient, and completely without honor. Human teams tracked swarm movements through dead systems and consumed worlds. They used bioweapons that turned swarm creatures against each other. They deployed AI-controlled drones that hunted swarm clusters relentlessly. When they found swarm breeding sites, they destroyed them with nuclear fire. Commander Tanaka led a strike team deep into swarm territory, following the coordination patterns Okonkwo had identified. They found it 3 months into the campaign. A massive biological structure, part ship and part creature, floating in dark space. It pulsed with activity, sending signals to swarm forces across multiple sectors. "That's it," Tanaka said. "The hive mind. Take it out and the whole swarm loses coordination." Her team deployed every weapon they had, missiles packed with tailored viruses, nanite swarms programmed to consume organic matter, and finally 3 heavy fusion warheads. The biological structure tried to defend itself, spawning thousands of smaller creatures, but the human team had expected that. They had brought weapons specifically designed to kill everything. The structure died in a cascade of biological failure and nuclear fire. Across the galaxy, swarm forces suddenly lost their coordination. They became confused, disorganized. Council fleets, coordinated by human tactical teams, moved in and destroyed the scattered swarm forces. It was not a clean victory. Entire systems had been sterilized. Billions had died, but the swarm was stopped. In the aftermath, the council gathered once again. The chamber was different now. Many seats were empty, representing species that had lost too much in the war. But those who remained looked at humanity with new eyes. Not just fear, but respect and gratitude. "You saved us," Theric said simply. "We would be extinct without your help." "We did what was necessary," Okonkwo replied. He stood at the speaker's platform, still in his military uniform. "Nothing more, nothing less." "But at such cost," Pelshaw said. She had lost 3 colony worlds of her people. So much death, so much destruction. Was there no other way? "There might have been," Okonkwo said honestly, "but we didn't have time to find it." The swarm was winning. Every day we waited, more beings died. So we used the fastest, most efficient methods available. We fought total war because anything less would have meant extinction. A new voice spoke up. A young delegate from a species humanity had allied with during their isolation. "The humans fought for all of us. They used terrible weapons and tactics, yes, but they did it to protect us, to save us. Is that not worthy of gratitude rather than judgment?" The chamber murmured in agreement. Thyrix raised his limbs for attention. "The Galactic Council proposes a revision to the Suresh Conventions," he announced. "We acknowledge that there are 2 types of conflict. Convention warfare, conducted between civilized species who agree to limit themselves, and survival warfare, conducted against existential threats that recognize no rules. The conventions will apply to the first but not the second." "And who decides which is which?" someone asked. "We decide together," Theric said, "as a council, as allies. No species should face extinction alone because they followed rules their enemy ignored. This is the lesson humanity taught us." The motion was put to a vote. It passed unanimously. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. She looked older now, worn by the stress of war and isolation. "Does this mean humanity is welcome in the council again?" "It means more than that," Theric said. "We offer humanity a permanent seat on the Security Council, with full voting rights and veto power. We offer military alliances and trade agreements. We offer friendship, if you will still accept it after how we treated you." Chen looked at President Ose via the communication link. The president nodded slightly. Chen turned back to Theric. "We accept, but understand something. We will follow your conventions when we fight convention warfare. We will honor the rules when our enemy honors them. But if someone attacks our people, if someone threatens our existence, we will do whatever it takes to survive. No apologies, no regrets." "We understand," Theric said, "and perhaps that is how it should be. We spent so long trying to make war civilized that we forgot why the rules existed. They are not meant to tie our hands. They are meant to prevent unnecessary death. But when death is necessary, when survival is at stake, the rules must bend. Or break," Okonkwo added quietly. "Or break," Theric agreed. The formal ceremony was held a week later. Ambassador Chen stood before the council, and this time there was no hostility. Humanity was welcomed as full members. Treaties were signed. Alliances were formed. And throughout the galaxy the word spread. Humanity had saved them. Humanity, the species that didn't have rules for war. On Earth, in a military cemetery, Admiral Okonkwo stood before a memorial. It listed the names of everyone who died at New Brisbane, 3 million names carved in stone. He had started this by refusing to follow rules. He had ended it by proving sometimes rules aren't enough. We did it, he said quietly to the memorial. We survived. We protected our people. And we made sure the galaxy remembers what happens when someone threatens humanity. The wind blew across the cemetery, carrying the scent of flowers. Okonkwo saluted the memorial and walked away. Behind him, the names remained. A reminder of why humanity fought the way they did. A reminder that survival is not about honor or rules.